Hey, Doug, are you don't have like other slightly who really fortunate when it comes to trying to keep us from you're very fortunate. I'm staying here.
Me too.
Exciting. Talking to you. There you go. I know I do.
Enjoy your youth while you can.
That's right.
Mark Twain said the youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta stay in Wisconsin.
I know exactly what he's talking about now. No, you're young if it doesn't make sense. Once it starts making sense, you know you're up there. Like, okay, now I understand.
We'd like to call the meeting to order. The first item on our work session agenda is a presentation by Richard Carlisle. And he's going to give us a Seaver Farm update.
Dick Carlisle, Carlisle Workman Associates. I know now to identify myself. Well, I'm pleased to be able to present this to you this evening, and I know you have some information in your packets. We got involved in this project through our participation beginning last year, or late last year, with the development team, and that was about the township's efforts to market the Seaver parcel. Let me say, incidentally, too, that you have an outstanding piece of property here, and very centrally located, but very accessible to I-94. It's about 13 acres north of Brinker Drive, and I believe another, well, the total is 37 acres total, both north and south of Brinker Drive. And as I said, I think it's really one of the gem pieces of property. If you think about all the road frontage that it has, the fact that there's existing infrastructure in place, you've got a road network that already serves the perimeter of the entire piece, it is a highly marketable piece of property. And when we first were involved in looking at this, as the township was working to sell portions of the Seaver parcel in parcels, and had received some, I don't know if Mr. Winters would characterize them as actual offers, because they never really materialized. But the fact is that they were somewhat piecemealing. They would end up piecemealing the development of the property, and I think, in particular, the development team began to see some of the difficulties of that. With essentially what it would do is put the township in the risk of being a developer mode, so to speak. So after seeing several of these proposals and seeing this approach, I recommended to the development team and then to ultimately now the township board that the township has an opportunity here to really approach this in a different way that I think will be far more fruitful in the long run for the township. And that is actually to search for a master developer of the property, either in part or in total for the entire piece of property. What this really means is that rather than looking for purchasers of individual parcels, we would conduct a process to receive proposals from a developer or developers that would seek to develop. It'd be great if it was the whole piece of property, but right now we would like to just concentrate on the parcel that's north of Brinker Drive. The thinking behind this it will really end up in a more complete and comprehensive approach to the development of the property. It will allow you to review proposals on the basis of the merits of the proposal and the qualifications of the developer, and it would allow you then to enter into a negotiation process once you have gone through a qualification process to really develop a comfort level with a potential developer of the property, then to begin the negotiation process in terms of what it's, the price and responsibilities and what the end result is going to be. In my mind, what this does is it gives the township a greater degree of assuredness that the property is going to develop in a manner that's really going to be beneficial to what your goals and objectives are of the township. So it's more than just a financial transaction. It is really an evaluation of what contributes to the greater good of the township. Now, this particular property, while it's currently zoned industrial research office, is master planned for your town, under your town center. And I think that this piece of property has tremendous potential to really sort of launch that particular goal that you have that's part of your master plan, and that is to really begin to create these elements of a town center. And we've developed a concept plan, and I really want you to look at this strictly conceptually, because we know that the market may come to us and say there are things that should be different, but we have the potential of either one or two hotels on the site, which will bring restaurants and perhaps some retail. But we also think that this property, in accordance with your master plan and the town center zoning regulations, can really bring about a more complete mixed-use site that has residential, walkable environment, and some park amenity facilities that will really be quite an attractive location in the township. One of the reasons why I feel really optimistic about this piece of property is that we've done some market analysis of this, and within a 3-mile radius, which is generally what you would draw as a radius for something that's more of a community commercial draw, a 3-mile radius is pretty realistic. You have a population of over 70,000 people within a 3-mile radius. You also have an additional 2,000 businesses within that area. So businesses that have employees that need some place to eat lunch, businesses that bring people in from out of town that need hotel space, businesses that want to conduct meetings in an environment like that, or businesses that would like to have the people that work for them live closer to them in an environment like this, especially potentially a younger workforce. And so that's why I'm very optimistic about this. I don't want to oversell it because I hope it's successful, but I'm very optimistic that we're going to get interested parties in this property if we go through this process. So how generally it works, what we've done is we've laid out in the RFQ a general description of the site. We talk about what some of the site development goals are. Then we get into more specifically in terms of the responsibilities of the master developer, what we are looking for in terms of qualities of the master developer. Then part of the submission is that they really have to present their credentials to us. So part of the submission will be, what's your development concept and how does it fit into our vision for the site? Tell us about what kind of things that you have done, the types of projects that you've done. What are your credentials? What's your financial capability? Can you bring the juice to the table that's needed to develop a site like this? In other words, are we going to be able to rely upon you to be able to do what you say you're going to do? Relevant experience and background. This will be then vetted by a review committee that is determined by the supervisor in terms of who will be reviewing this and vetted, and then recommendations would then be made to the township board, either to conduct interviews or make a selection. This is not an unusual approach. As a matter of fact, we have assisted communities on a number of occasions in terms of marketing property that they have, and generally this type of approach is when you're attempting to try to achieve a specific objective, this is a better route to go than just simply sell property. Because when you simply sell property, you're selling it based on price and sort of an acceptable use, but you could have the potential to lose the greater vision about how it fits into the whole bigger picture. And so this was the suggestion that we made to township officers and the development team, and I was asked to come tonight and present this to you as a board, answer questions, and get direction.
Doug, do you have anything else to add to this process?
No, what I would say is that for the board members that weren't here, and the new board members, this piece of property at one time was actually targeted to be developed into a mobile home park at the time, and there was going to be approximately over 1,000 mobile home units, and it's actually going to consist of about 100. There's about a 100-acre parcel over there. And at the time the township went to court on the rezoning lawsuit, we prevailed on the lawsuit, and as it turned out, the people that were trying to sell the property, they ultimately approached the township, and this is how the Seaver Farm was actually purchased at the time. There was a vision of, I guess, going on 15, 18 years ago, that one day this would be a property that could become a town center zoning at the time, and later on it's gone through different names, but I think the concept remains a viable one in regards to controlling the township's own destiny in regards to what's going to go in this these different parcels of on the property. I think Bozo was the one that we sold the portion of the property to. That's the manufacturing facility that we also sold some of it early on, and we now have, I think the bonding may be down to, so let's sit on $2 million now, Larry, the bonding?
The bonding is at, 1.5, and we are making a $800,000 payment in the next month. So we'll be down to 720,000. We still have a $2.3 million on infrastructure, which is in the LFD, which is paid for by a number of different communities that pays for that, so not along with us. So that one will be there for probably another 15 years, but that'll be paid down from the community.
And the reason why I mentioned that in the context of the Sewer Farm Master Developer presentation is that I think the township has been very aggressive in trying to stabilize the residential neighborhoods and been very successful and continues to do so. But in terms of expanding the tax base, we know that with the commercial industrial properties, that's the one way of trying to expand that tax base with new construction, and rather than trying to piecemeal this out and possibly end up with a hodgepodge, my term, it was thought maybe that this would be one that would be, the time is right now to see just actually what level of interest is out there for a master developer and try to have an integrated concept plan that might take into consideration the commercial, the mixed use, etc. So I think that the history of this project was the history of this property was pretty much important to the township at the time in trying to preserve that corridor, and we were successful. And now we're taking it to, I think, the next evolution stage and trying to actually see the development outcome to fruition after going through that decade of where there's been not very much interest because of the economy. So it's a good opportunity to think about how to take this to the next level.
All right. Thank you. Are there questions from trustee? Monica?
I have one. I don't know, I'm just curious. Was this a similar concept that was used over in Canton, over where Cherry Hill, they have a Cherry Hill development there? So I don't know, I'm just curious.
Well, actually, I was actually involved in the inception of Cherry Hill. We did the original master plan. And the answer to that is a qualified yes, because part of the property in the central core there was owned by the township. Everything surrounding it was private property, but it was heavily dictated by the zoning ordinance regulations and the plans that were approved by the township. So yes, the answer to that definitely is yes. It's very similar, a very similar approach. Obviously, a much larger development, but yes.
Do you have other examples of
Well,
master developer?
yes. Well, we actually started doing this concept with the city of Howell many years ago when they wanted to change the mix of their housing base a little bit, and they began to buy some property and turn around and market it to developers. One of the very most successful ones was on M59. It's called a development called Town Commons, Howell Town Commons, that became a very successful mixed-use commercial, multiple family, single family development. We are currently have been assisting the city of Plymouth with a piece of property in downtown Plymouth, where their DDA is going through the same kind of process of interviewing and developing, qualified developers to develop a piece of property that they own in downtown Plymouth. Probably one of the most, probably most aggressive ones that we're working on right now is with the city of Troy, and that is to assist them in the development of property that they have around their civic center, not unlike what you have, but their civic center complex is located right at the corner of Big Beaver and I-75. I think you probably know where it is, Mr. Eldridge. And they've made a decision that they would like to develop that area as the town center. And we in fact, we just completed developing the RFQ for them in that particular case. So it's not, what's interesting is when I got back into doing this and also helping Troy, I did a pretty extensive Google search and, across the country, and I find that this is being done in, many parts of the country where there's public property that is owned, and that to, flip it, to have it developed in a manner that that particular entity wants to achieve, they're going through a very, very similar process. So we're not reinventing the wheel, I guess, from that standpoint.
All right. Just for the trustees, we've had people kind of interested in some of the parcels, and two of them were hotels, and to try to figure out which lot a hotel should go on. That's where Mr. Carlisle came up with, have you considered a master developer? Now, I had never heard of that, but I learn something new every day. But my understanding is they do this quite a bit throughout the country.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's more organized, right?
Yes.
And you also do, what I like, you do extensive financial
Yes.
to make sure that the people buying the property has the ability to develop it.
Correct.
And it still has to go, so if it goes out for our RFQ at the next meeting, then it comes back to the board to decide. And any development goes through the planning commission and the township board. So it follows the same
Absolutely.
process
Yes.
that any other.
Yes, that's exactly right. There's nothing, there's no formal processes that are circumvented. But more importantly, it's going to give you an opportunity to see that the property is developed in a manner that has a much broader benefit to the township than just selling property. You can just sell the property. You can sell it maybe for the same amount that you would get otherwise, But this way, it gives you a lot more control over how the property is going to be developed. And
who is
and
developing?
who is developing it. Correct.
Any other comments or quick roll?
As we went through, we were getting a couple of different offers. I don't know how good offers they were, but on just the kind of like the prime pieces on the corners, the hotels, we started looking at, well, what about the roads, and would they put this road in and that road, and then that's, we kind of just thought, well, this is kind of crazy, because what will happen is they're going to sell off all the prime pieces, and they're going to be left, and then there might not be access or roads to make sure that happens. So, I don't know, I think that we have a prime piece of real estate. One large, section, what it's 38 acres, I think.
Something like
Something
that.
like
Close to
that.
that 37
And a chance, to really model into something that makes sense. And I know we shared too that some of us traveled and stuff, and it's like some of the communities, especially down in the south, outside of Cincinnati and outside of Columbus, outside of Lexington, it's kind of, I don't think they're necessarily public developments, but it's kind of that same concept where they went in with a large piece of land. It was one large developer who then hooked down anchors and different folks and it was all planned where they had, which is, it used to be, the concept was residential is here and multiple is there, and you have these buffer zones in between, but kind of what we've actually physically seen, and you can just, Google it, that, because we kind of did that too, just to look at layouts, is that now it's like we're going to put, apartments together with shopping and with groceries and with entertainment districts. So that's kind of like what we were thinking, but in order to make that happen, it had to be with somebody that was big enough, had deep enough pockets, and then had the connections to bring in folks, the different, groups that might want to be involved. I saw I didn't even know they were doing it, but when lots of people posted that they went to see Beauty and Beast at the new State Imagine Theater, I thought, dang, man, we missed that. This would have been a great place to have, I could see a theater as being kind of a corner and then having places to eat and places to live, around it. But maybe obviously there'll probably be something else because it is a prime piece of real estate in a growing section of the county in southeastern Michigan. I think it kind of fits in right in with ACM and everything else that's development, and so I think it's like a great time, and so I look forward to seeing, hopefully as we discuss it at the next agenda, the board approves to see, what kind of folks that we get that are interested in Ypsilanti Township.
Great. My thoughts exactly about ACM too. I mean, again, this is where there is, you have windows of opportunity, and this is one of those for the township at this point in time. Your name is being mentioned frequently. The ACM and Ypsi Township and YAM are all heavily being covered in the media. This piece of property here, it would be a prime piece of property to provide a lot of the support type of activities for what we believe will spin off not just directly, but indirectly from ACM. And the ability to be able to have a very attractive, high-quality development like this with, restaurants, shops, hotels, some housing, so that is very nice quality housing. I think we're going to see some interest in it. I mean, that's just my opinion. The proof will be in the pudding, but I do think we're going to see some interest in this.
All right. Thank you, then. If there's no other questions, then you'll bring it. This will come back to the next board meeting, clerk.
Okay.
At this time, we have the agenda review. On public hearings for the creation of a special assessment district. It's number 68 for the public security cameras for the Huron Heights and Huron Ridge apartments. This
Answer to it.
no.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that the owner of the apartment, the 2 parcels of land, petitioned the township and asked to have cameras installed like they do in other neighborhoods throughout the community. And this is our first apartment complex to do it. So we're excited and hope to have more apartment complexes join in. So it's at the entrances on both sides of their development. The camera costs purchase is absorbed by the township general fund, and then the long-term operation and maintenance is paid for by the owner of the parcels of land. So we have a budget amendment that will address purchasing the cameras, and then the public hearing is just to follow through on the request of the owner of the two parcels of land. And it's just like every other neighborhood that we've done, it's just apartment complexes this time. Are there any questions regarding the resolution or the process? Or Clerk Rowe, did I cover it?
Madam Chair, I just had a quick question. So in neighborhoods, normally you have to get 50% of the residents to want it. Is that correct? And so with this is just a few owners that wanted it. And so you don't have to go through that process of getting all the...
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's only two parcels of land, which when you're in a neighborhood, there's 800 sometimes. So you have to get 51%. But these are two just owners of the two parcels. Yeah, it's the first time we're doing it. I'm kind of excited about it, actually.
Makes sense. Thank you.
One owner owns both of them, so it's 100% support.
Okay. At this time, we normally don't do public comments, but I see people in the public. I'm not sure if people want to comment or not, or they can wait to the agenda item. Okay. Consent agenda. We have minutes of the March 21st work session and regular meeting. Any questions on that? Statements and checks. And the treasurer's report. I'm sorry. What? Oh, Joanne McCollum. I'm sorry. Did I go too quickly? I'm sorry.
That's all right. I was going to wait anyway for the next meeting, but for the cameras, to be in a neighborhood, my name's Joanne McCullum. I live at 1900 Tyler Road in West Willow, and my neighborhood was the first one to get the cameras. And we did have some people that didn't want them, but right now I have not. I think for years of having them and them being helpful for our community, everyone is positive about them. Our crime rate has gone down. We had no home invasions the last month, and our crime is down. It's really a good thing. And the really bad windstorm knocked one of the cameras down, and I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and said, are they going to fix that camera? So people really like them. They see the benefit of them. So I am glad that we are doing this for the community, for an apartment complex, because I think it'll be safer, and that draws more people in. Interest in the community. So thank you for agreeing to that.
Thank you. All right. The minutes of the work session or regular meeting. Statements and checks. The health care deductible and the treasurer's report. Are there any questions on those items? Under old business, the attorney's report, is there any general legal update?
I'll do it right now so I can satisfy Larry's glare at me sometimes. I think that as we continue to make a lot of progress in a lot of different areas, especially in regards to economic development and stabilizing our tax base, that again, we cannot overlook the fact that we still try and get our arms around all the issues pertaining to our neighborhoods. And in that regard, the board had authorized at the last board meeting for our office to initiate the appropriate legal action to padlock two properties that have been identified as properties that were allowing the sale of drugs. In fact, the one property actually had 10 pit bulls that endangered the officers when they arrived there to do a follow-up investigation. And the point I'm making is that we were able to have those two properties padlocked. They've been emptied out of the contents. They possibly will be going up for sale, but it will be done so under the auspices of the OCS department in terms of the realtors having to work with the township to have access to those properties. And the point I'm making is that even though a lot of things have changed dramatically in the last 8 or 10 years, we just can't lose our vigilance in regards to the neighborhoods. And in that regard, there are two properties on here tonight for public nuisance action that also illustrate just this ongoing vigilance that's required in order to make sure our neighborhoods truly become stabilized. I did send out some letters to the board over the weekend in highlighting some of the successes in which properties that were burned out have been rehabilitated. We continue to identify those in which the banks have not done their part in living up to their social and legal contract with the American taxpayers are the ones who were bailed out and then walk away. In fact, one of the ones before the board this evening involves Nation Star Mortgage, who simply will not do the right thing in terms of addressing these property issues. And so even though we continue to have a tremendous amount of success during those 10 years of aggressive enforcement, I'm just kind of going into the spring and summer months in which some of these issues really become even more apparent, because as people get outside during the summer months, they want to enjoy their yard, and of course nothing is worse than having anyone over for a cookout and having just the blight and junk lying around out there in neighboring properties. So we continue to be very, very aggressive in maintaining those goals and mission statement of the Township Board. But again, as we continue to go forward with the development of the ACM property, review all those site plans, we're continuing to make progress. Yucca is in drawing down the Tyler Pond, the Tyler Dam, and that's getting to a point now pretty soon where we will be able to make demand for the remaining funds that are owed to the township pursuant to that development agreement to offset those costs of having the Tyler Dam removed. And so there are a lot of positive things that are happening, as Mr. Carlisle indicated, in regards to his vision and the Township Board's vision of future development. But just again, as we continue to go through all these issues, we're not going to let the prospect of new development take away our focus also on the neighborhoods that also deserve our attention and have done so for the last 10 years. So I just want to highlight those success stories in regards to the padlock cases and the continuing to hold everyone accountable for how they're going to maintain their property.
Any comments or questions? The next item is old business, a second reading resolution 2017-04 regarding an ordinance to amend the Township Zoning Code section for signs. The first reading was held at the March 7th regular meeting. Nothing changed from the first reading. Any comment on it? This just puts it in line with the laws of the land. The second item under number 2, old business, is the second reading resolution 2017-05 to permit raising up to 4 hens on residential parcels with 1 acre or more, and request a planning commission to revisit the ordinance at the beginning of 2018 to review the language and host public hearings for smaller lots, and also request a planning consultants to research other municipality ordinance on the subject and problems they have experienced. Questions and comments?
Madam Chair, I just have one quick question. And this is really for clarity. I know it says, and make sure I have it correct, where am I at here? Review, here we go. So starting at beginning of 2018, to review the language and host public hearing for smaller lots, and also request for the planning consultants to research other municipality ordinances on this subject and problems they have experienced. When it comes for smaller lots, I wonder if we could use the language lot size variances, because that's really what we're, that's what they're going to be looking at if this is approved. So I didn't know if that would be something that the language could be more clarified there.
What lot, just so I understand, lot size variances from,
So basically, right now we're, if I have it correct, what is in this proposal is to bring it from, obviously, 5 acres to 1 acre. But the Planning Commission in the future would be looking at variances beyond that, if I have it correct from what we discussed at the last meeting. And so it would be a lot size variances based on what it is that they may or may not approve at the Planning Commission beyond what would be approved in this particular ordinance. I hope that's clear.
I'm slow today, though, so it could be, as long as it's clear to everyone else. I'm sorry. Trustee Eldridge?
Sorry. I apologize for missing the last meeting. Unfortunately, somebody had to be in Naples, Florida, and it was me. So I would just, being on a planning commission, would concur with Trustee Ross Williams. My concern would be if it says for smaller lots, it's leading a planning commission or whomever would be reviewing it to a certain preconceived direction. If you could just say potential lot variances, and as I kept reading, and I got to the last line where it says problems they have experienced, could we replace the word problems with issues? They could look for positives, they could look for negatives, just issues, rather than saying smaller, just say potential lot variances. That could mean smaller or larger. And issues could mean good experiences or problem experiences. That's all. Okay. It gives it more of a moderate, middle of the road, and lets those that are making the review come to their own conclusions.
Clerk Rowe?
The language for the, I think maybe put more into it, but it was actually, oh, thank you. More into it. The issue came because a lot of the folks who wanted the smaller lot said that they've never had a chance to speak to so that was the issue. Like, whether it would be people for or against, but just the idea that there'd be some public hearings on taking a look at, because they've been trying to talk at the planning commissions on this ordinance, which is not for that, and so that's where that language got added. And the other one I think was actually Monica that just said they asked Dick Carlisle if he had done any research, and then if he knew the positives or whether there were actual complaints that had been filed. So I don't know if you want to look at positive issues and stuff is how you change it, but you can make the motion however you want on the second reading. So
I'm just for a point of information, what does that have to do with the second? Why is this? Usually the second resolution is to adopt the ordinance that's before us.
Right.
So I'm not sure why all that is in there.
Because that's the way that we made the motion when we approved it.
We approved first reading that way, but
Right.
it's not. And
No, I didn't add it to the resolution because I didn't think that was appropriate because of the that it's more of a legal thing for the ordinance itself, and just the amendment really was just kind of a suggestion or direction
Right,
to the
that's what
planning
it was,
commission.
yeah.
So I didn't know if for the second reading, if you want to separate those out, I don't, But that's how the motion that was made, that we made an amendment to it, so we added that. Yeah.
Right, and I'm just trying.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, my understanding was it was a friendly amendment to ask the Planning Commission the latter part of this year or the first part of 18 is to possibly review this ordinance again, is what I was understanding. So I don't know, I would think we would pass, if that's the board's pleasure, pass this ordinance, and then hopefully when things slow down a little bit, allow the Planning Commission to review it in late 17 or early 18, is my understanding.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
As a person that accepted the friendly amendment, I agree with Treasurer Doe that that's how I interpret it.
Mr. Carlisle, did you turn the mic on?
It's on.
Okay, good.
Richard Carlisle, Carlisle Workman. The intent of what the board is looking for is clear to me. Okay, regardless of the language that you use in here, I believe that what you're looking for is a further evaluation of the options that you could consider moving forward with regulating backyard chickens, if any. The Planning Commission may come back to you and say, after we've presented a variety of information to them, and say, here's what we looked at, here were the pluses, here were the minuses, here's what we're recommending to you. But it was very, very clear to me that you were looking for a further evaluation of what other options you might consider, which would include some review of what has been done elsewhere, which I've already started to collect, by the way. So I think I do understand what we need to do, but we will, as the board's aware, will not be able to probably begin to address this till things slow down a little bit before the Planning Commission.
Okay. It's just the first time I've seen a second reading presented this way. Because you can still do it in the motion, right? You can still do a motion that, we've already, the whole board voted to give direction to do that. You don't do that twice. That's part of the reading of an ordinance, and the ordinances are the law. You see, okay. Right, and I can see why, but yeah, because you've already, right. Right, and this just had the second reading on the ordinance, which is, correct, Mr. Winters?
Yes, I think what's before the board this evening is the second reading on the ordinance and the resolution, and that directive was almost kind of like another request, as Dick indicated, to the Planning Commission to revisit this sometime next year, it looks like.
Okay. So we'll just leave it at second reading of the resolution. Right, that's what I understand. Okay. Okay, so are there comments? Ms. Kaiser, did you want to say something?
I just have one question. My name is Arloa Kaiser, live at 1421 Melvin Street. Is a consideration of nothing less than 1 acre? Because my understanding in one subdivision someplace that have been discussing that they're going to have 50-foot lots. I think they're 50 by 100. So the Plan Commission has to be very careful what they say in the amount of property allowed, because there are a lot of lots that are 60 by 100, and you're really close to your neighbors.
Yeah.
And if you have a bad neighbor,
This resolution is unplatted lot, correct? Yes. So it does not include any subdivisions at all. All right, under new business number 1, we have the budget amendment number 4. And one of the budget amendments is for $10,000 to purchase the cameras and install them at the 2 apartment complexes that requested them. And then the other one is to pay down debt on the Seaver property bonds that Treasurer Doe spoke about. And we talked about this last year to do it, and it takes a budget amendment to actually pay down the bonds. So are there any questions? The revenue comes from a cellular tower that we actually sold to this company called, what's it, LLC, Network SBA, and then they gave us $322,951. So the board wanted to pay down debt with that, and this action pays the debt down. At least,
Yeah, actually what it was, they were paying us annual lease payments, and so we negotiated a one lump sum payment that represents about 15 years of payments in one lump sum. We still have 3 other cell towers out there that's generating annual revenue. We thought this would be a good opportunity to do one lump sum payment of $332 and apply that to the indebtedness of the Seaver Farm bonds. So as an anecdotal note, my research indicated that cell towers themselves may become somewhat even obsolete in the next 5 or 10 years. Don't know if they will or not, but if they do, this is a good deal for the township right now because technology is changing so rapidly. We don't know what it'll be like the next 5 years, much less 10 years. So that's where those funds came from,
Yeah.
Supervisor Stumble said.
and then, like I said, the board discussed it. It's wise to pay your debt down when you get that kind of money that you didn't expect. So, any questions on that? The next item is a request of Yankee Air Force Museum and Michigan Aerospace Foundation for a one-year extension on their PD number 21, 2015 Stage 1 Site Plan and Rezoning Approval. Any questions on that? Or just grant them a quick roll.
I just wanted to clarify, we did add to the request. Thank you. We did add to the request based on Carlisle and Wortman's. They're trying to organize our zoning map, and we have a lot of PD rezonings that in later years, more recent years, got numbers, and then older ones that didn't, and then Yam was the one that didn't. So we looked at the next one number that we had was 21, and we decided to also hyphenate those with the year for the original time when the PD was originally approved, which from this case was 2015. So that's from this step going forward. We're going to try to put a PD number on every PD with the actual year when it was first approved, just for record and data and research that we have to do down the road when none of us are here. So.
Are there any questions on that? We had a great presentation. I know Dennis Norton is here if anyone has any questions about it. Hearing none, we'll go to request of Mike Radzick, OCS Director, to approve issuance of 5 foundation-only building permits for new home construction for the manors at Creekside Village. Attorney Winters?
Yes, the Manors at Creekside is a residential development that has been resurrected by Lombardo Homes. And at the time in 2011, when that portion was split off from Creekside South, there was a condition that no building permits could be issued until a development agreement had been reached between the township and Lombardo Homes. Since January, we've been trying to get a final development agreement ready to bring back to the township board. In the meantime, right now, that's probably 99% completed. In fact, it probably is in proper form. And that will be on the agenda for the board's consideration on April the 4th. In the meantime, with the spring construction season starting to really get going, Lombardo has sold at least 5 homes, maybe more in the Creekside Manors. They're anxious to get their work going. And so they have requested that we, as a township board, approve 5 foundational permits. We've all agreed internally that that's not a problem, given that we do have a 99% completed development agreement. All the funds are being escrowed. Treasurer Doe has received an updated letter of credit. The other required escrow dollars have been agreed upon by the parties, and so they simply want to get in the ground. Next 2 weeks are important for them, and we have no objections that the board considers granting them the 5 foundational permits so they can get started, knowing that in 2 weeks we'll have the the final development agreement before the township board.
Are there any questions regarding that? So that's a good sign that things are up and running.
There are a number of these that are starting to come our way again, so that's a good sign that, again, development is returning to the township.
The next item is a request for authorization. Request authorization of contract with Reimagine Washington on the amount of $5,000. Any questions on that? This is a continuation of that process, and staff works with each community to help us as we redevelop our section of Washington Avenue, and it's Ann Arbor, Pittsfield Township, Ypsilanti Township, and the city of Ypsilanti. And AAATA. Each community is contributing towards the contract in order to continue with it. The next item is a resolution opposing the elimination and reduction of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development programs, which are vital to the Township of Ypsilanti residents and all Washtenaw County residents. Clerk Rowe?
I'm not sure if they sent it out to everybody, but I know Renee and Larry got a resolution from the county in response to the budget that's being presented at the federal government, to the Congress, and to the Senate. And so folks at the county level started doing research on what that would mean and the cuts, and that's what you have included here. What Supervisor Stumble and I talked about, like maybe we could try to work on making the resolution a little more personal, Ypsilanti Township. And so I asked Habitat just to put together, the amount of federal funds that they had received through CDBG and HUD Home, which we're partners and we sit on there. And based on your population as a county, you get so many funds. And this is where anywhere from 140, I think this year is going to be $160,000 comes for CDBG. But on the HUD and the home side, it's much larger. And so Rob Nisley from Habitat actually put together, and that's where you see those specific numbers where they received $6 million from 2009 to 2017. That's what Habitat has received, a variety of federal funds. And then they put together a list of all their outside vendors and all their other outside private monies that come in and other nonprofits. So for $6 million, their federal funding, the return on investment was $30 million. So it's pretty good investment. So hopefully the Senate and the Congress will look at that when they're looking at things that don't work. This is a program that actually works extremely well. And then we added numbers in there to talk about, the issues with how we struggle to maintain things, even though we lost at 33% of our taxable value, and how the CDBG, which we have mostly used until the last couple of years for roads, and that without those, we would not, have been able to do those projects. And then more recently, I think this year we're doing a roof repair project at the community center, and there's been a couple playground projects, and now we're looking at doing, some bus shelter work there. And without those dollars, we would not be able to do that. So that's what this is about. And if you see at the end of it, it's to send it to all of our representatives, which we know, they're probably, ahead of us even on opposing a lot of these cuts. But this just shows where Ypsilanti Township's at and the dollars that we have direct benefit. And when Doug talks about all those houses that Habitat buys, Ypsilanti Township has put in money, but not anything compared to the federal dollars it's made. I think they're at over 100 homes countywide, and I think 78 of those or something like that is in Ypsilanti Township since 2009. So it's pretty impressive when you think about how we've used our federal dollars here in Ypsilanti Township. And that $6 million, I think, also included the demo project, which is huge, I think, of Liberty Square, because those were federal dollars. So he kind of just listed out, all the different federal dollars that's come through CDBG and home and other federal dollars that Ypsilanti Township's been able to use to demolish properties and build new homes. And the weatherization, and refrigerator repair, this furnace repair. That's what the resolution is.
All right. Thank you. The next item is request of Michael Sarin, the hydro station manager, for approval of the renewable energy credits, which is RECs, for the purchase and sale of them. It's our second year doing it, right? Is our third? It's not too many.
Hi. REC is a renewable energy credit. When we, sorry, Jeff Allen, in for Mike. He and I talked today. He was in the cleaning out the screens of the dam today. He got 18-inch pike was stuck in there. So there is pike in the lake. But anyways, 18-inch long pike fish.
Wow.
It was dead, but anyways, there was all kinds of fish. I'm just telling you. And he was in the middle of all the fish, so he was pretty fishy smelling today. So, but just for the record, there's, a lot of different types of fish. And, I learned just a couple years ago, was pike in there. So, people are fishing for those. Anyways, what we've been doing with the program is to use our renewable energy credits that we get from generating electricity and applying them to the electric use in our buildings so that we can be considered a green building. And that's basically what this proposal is, the same as in the prior years.
Are there any questions on that? I noticed that the sale price was $0. We're not going to sell it for $0, right?
Well, to ourselves, we will.
Oh, okay.
I know we've talked about that in the past, and we're, when we used to sell them on the open market, we might get $1 for them, and probably cost us more in paperwork, charging a department, the rec center $1.
You mean a penny or $1?
Well, they were getting them for up to $1, but sometimes, they were as low as a penny.
Right.
And what they do, they go on, the bidding starts at $1, and they go down to, people are buying $1 million for a penny, and it's not worth our time even selling them or charging different departments.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just had a quick question. It may or may not apply. Does this program also have anything to do with LEED certifications, or that's separate?
That's a lot more intense. It is part of the LEEDs, but we're not anywhere near that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So basically, we generated enough renewable electricity for all of our buildings.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right. You could think that we use the dam. The thought process could be we use the dam to do, and send it to all our buildings for electricity. We can't do that. We don't have the grid. But DTE, basically, that's what we're using the credits for, to kind of say that is, we are kind of using renewable energy for that.
Right. The next item is the request of the fire chief to accept the annual contract with Emergent Health Partners, formerly known as Huron Valley. Chief?
Good evening, Madam Supervisor, Honorable Board. Before you is a request to approve the contract. It's a 2-year contract. And reading the minutes, I think it said to June 2018. I think it's June 2019 on this contract. 2 years with Huron Valley, Emergent Health Huron Valley Ambulance to provide dispatching services for fire department. I guess this is indifferent from what we did 2 years ago. They went to a 2-year cycle. There's a modest increase according to their billing formula from the 2017-2018 year to the 2018-2019 year. It's about $2,000 difference.
So it's actually through 2019?
I believe so. I believe it is. It's a 2-year.
Letter says
She says, actually this is in 2 phases. I guess we missed the second phase. Through June 30th, so if you want to change it on the agenda to June 30th, 2019. Instead of 18.
So change 18 to 19.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they sell it? What happened? Or is that
Well, that's a cost to the township for
No,
providing.
no, but Huron Valley, used to be Huron Valley, and then this company bought them? Is that what happened?
I think it's subsidiary in terms of the ownership. They still provide the ambulance services,
Right.
Huron Valley Ambulance, but I think for the dispatching component of their organization, it's run by Emergent,
Okay.
a different group of partners. Same players, different LLC, I guess.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that? And last item is request of Mike Radzik for authorization to seek legal action if necessary to abate public nuisance for property located at 130 South Harris and 2074 McGregor in the amount of $20,000. Attorney Winters?
Yes, these are the two properties I made reference to during the attorney report that have come under the radar of the Office of Community Standards. The one property, both properties are pretty bad. I think I sent the Township Board copies of all the photographs. And the one property, 130 South Harris, I think the owner is now starting to do some cleanup after being told what was going to happen this evening, which is always a good sign. The house on McGregor, I believe, is just going to require us to go into court and hold the Nation Star Mortgage accountable for the conditions that were found inside that property. They're just absolutely, the basement's flooded, there's exterior blight, there's mold, everything in the world going on inside that house. So Nation Star is going to have to either make a decision to either get it remediated. If not, then it may have to be demolished the way it's continuing to deteriorate. But again, the focus has been to seek voluntary compliance, and when property owners or banks refuse to do so, the township has had no choice but to go ahead and pursue this in court, and we've been very successful. It just continues to be a challenge each month to keep up with all the different properties that the township ordinance people come across.
Is this North Harris as opposed to South?
South Harris.
I thought it was down by Russell Anderson. Oh, okay. Okay. Any questions on it? And both are vacant.
Yes.
And that's it for the work session agenda. Bernie?
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
What is going on with Galt Village? Actually, I have two questions. What's going on with Galt Village, and what's going on with the Nexus pipeline?
Yeah, Mr. Winters can update on both.
Well, in regards to Gulf Village, there's a court-appointed receiver that continues to monitor the activities over there. I think they've had to order some of those funds to be utilized to install gate. There's a retaining wall that collapsed over there as well. And so I believe the last anchor tenant has moved out of that shopping center that one referred to as being, what was the Measurement Inc. I think they moved out of the shopping center. So whether or not it continues to go through a death spiral, it doesn't seem to be very promising over there. And so right now the court has the authority through the receiver to do what has to be done over there to keep it maintained safely. But the funds that are coming in may not be enough to cover all of the expenses. But at the same time, we're hopeful that maybe there could be a sale at some point in time to take advantage of the brownfield legislation that's being talked about in Lansing. But that is going to be a very important part of the township to have redevelopment occur in. And so we're still optimistic that something will take place. I don't think it's going to be achievable through the current ownership of that shopping center. And it's been one that's been a real problem for us for the last 25 years. And right now it's on the radar, and we're continuing to do what we can to use those funds that are coming through the receiver to at least enhance the safety and prevent the littering and the blight activities going on over there. And so we're going to continue to monitor that.
Have you heard anything about the Nexus pipeline? Is there any way we can, I know you're doing a lot of things that you did through closed session, but is there anything that we can do as the public of the township to try and stop this?
Well, let me just say this, and I'll be very, very honest with you, and be very, very, direct with you, Ms. Kaiser, because that's the way you are, and it's the way that we've been as well. And what I'm about to say is what I would say if there was a room full of people as well. This process has been going on, as you know, for the last 3 years, and right now it's at the issue of getting the license is being held up at the FERC because there's no quorum
Right.
at the FERC commission. But we all know there's going to be a quorum at some point in time. I've talked to the Michigan Sierra Club and everybody involved in this process, and during the last 30 years, there's only been one time in 30 years in which a gas pipeline or oil pipeline, whatever, has been turned down in getting a permit to proceed. So 1 out of 30 years is not a very, very optimistic view as to what's been going on here. I know you mentioned before about the Attorney Generals, people at the Public Service Commission. As far as I'm aware, I've not seen Bill Schuette one time come out and take a public stance against Nexus Pipeline, or for that matter, any other pipeline going across the state. And so right now, as it goes from Ohio into Michigan right now, there have been resolutions passed. This Township Board passed one to oppose the Nexus Pipeline. But I don't want to give anybody that sense that somehow that's going to be one that's going to prevent that pipeline from being constructed. 1 out of 30 years is not a very realistic view as to what's going to happen at FERC. In regards to the issue of the odorization waiver, that's being handled by a separate agency, the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. They are a separate agency under the Department of Transportation that's separate and apart from the FERC approval process. And they are looking at whether or not Nexus request to waive the odorization requirements should be granted. That is still in the process of review. I talked to the person in charge of that application this past week. Nexus still has not submitted that application yet, and when it does, it'll go out for public comment. In the meantime, we've talked with, again, the Michigan Sierra Club. We talked with Evan Pratt from the County Resource Commissioner's Office, and there are a number of mitigating safety enhancements that they believe, if a waiver is going to be granted, actually should be attached to any kind of a waiver request. In other words, there are certain types of requirements in regards to doing aerial flyovers to make sure that nothing is interfering or nothing has gone wrong with the pipeline. And they can increase the amount of aerial inspections. They can also require, according to the Sierra Club, certain types of infrared sensing mechanisms that will enhance the safety of the pipeline in the ground. So there's about a half a dozen or more very important conditions that they believe would actually enhance the safety issue in the event odorization is not going to be granted. If odorization is not going to be required, there are certain safety enhancements that they can require. And so we continue to put our arms around all these different issues, all these different recommendations that have come from people that have dealt with this issue for a lot longer than we have. But as our neighboring communities and the county goes, I don't think anybody is going to put any kind of financial dollars into any kind of a prolonged legal fight on this issue. And at the same time, we're going to do everything we possibly can to make sure the environment's protected and the residents are protected as well. But I don't think that anybody, myself anyway, I don't want to give you the impression that somehow this is going to be something that I can stop from happening. I can do everything I possibly can to make sure that if it goes through, that we're going to have our voices heard at the table. And that's being done right now. But I don't want you to think right now, because right now, whether it's the Congress or whether it's the state, whether it's people from Ohio, there's nobody out there that's going to be, that's come out stronger than what the local environmental groups have done, townships have done, county has done, this board's done. But at the same time, the control is not with us. We're going to make sure that our voices are heard. But again, I know you mentioned before about Attorney General Schuette's office, but they've not done anything that I'm aware of that's said one time, we don't want this pipeline coming into Michigan. If they are, I haven't seen it. So, we're going to do what we can, but I don't want to mislead you into thinking somehow that there's a plan that I have, I'm going to be able to stop this pipeline.
Well, what's also interesting is on the radio, it's a Detroit, a Detroit station. I'm not sure which one it is, but I've heard part of it several times that they have said about the otification of natural gas, that's for our protection. They are stating that what can happen is you can either see bubbling coming up, which will destroy the vegetation. And part of that, the otification is for our protection. But if they're saying already that if there are leaks, what it's going to do to our environment. Now, I'm not sure why they're putting this out, except that saying that the otification helps people recognize that it's there. But if they're putting in these deep pipelines, how much is going to leak before we really know? And isn't infrared, isn't that a heat sensor more?
Well, I will see right now that the infrared was just one of the recommendations that the Sierra Club and Evan Pratt identified. And talking to the people who actually had the final say-so on that, that's the pipeline PHMSA group. They're the ones who have their own scientists and engineers and people on staff. They look at these applications and they go through these very, very, thoroughly. So I think there's a lot more than what I'm trying to summarize that would be a safety enhancement. I do know that on some of the ones that have been identified by Evan Pratt and by Sierra Club, I'm not saying they're the experts either, because again, you want to sometimes, I say to myself, to stay in my own lane of expertise. And so I have to defer to some people that know more than what I do. But the people I've talked to so far have indicated that there are a number of mitigating safety enhancements that, if they're implemented, actually enhance the safety more than the odorization would. And so at the end of the day, even the Sierra Club conceded to me that their goal is to ensure the public safety, and if there's going to be enhancements made, then so be it, because they understand, again, that there's this train coming down the track, so to speak, and we're trying to do what we can to slow it down, and we have slowed it down. Had it not been for the township reaching out to Congresswoman Dingo, who made inquiries on our behalf, this would probably have already been well on its way. But right now, we're at least having our voices heard in regards to our concerns. I'm not so sure that everybody's going to be satisfied, but again, you can't just rest on the shoulders of Ypsilanti Township when other communities all along from Ohio, all through Michigan, are impacted by this. And we have federal Congress people, we have state and governors, everybody involved in here, and nobody at that level that I'm aware of has really weighed in heavily on this issue. We are, you have, and we're doing what we can to make sure that those voices and concerns are expressed. But in terms of what's happening right now, that odorization issue has yet to be resolved by the PHMSA, and we're continuing to make our concerns known to the right people, and we're going to do what we can to make sure that we're protected.
Well, I found that in big business like this, figures lie and liars figure. They can manipulate what they want. Plus, they have people that they donate to their campaigns and that kind of stuff. So it is hard for us to do something, period. but you have to start someplace. It's like the cigarette ban. It started small, and now look how far it's gone. Same thing, hopefully, we can do with the pipelines instead of destroying our properties.
Well, I know right now there's other pipelines right now, too. They're going in across Michigan. They already have one lawsuit going on at the federal level where some of the residents here in Washtenaw County have been sued already. And no one seems to have, at the state level, weighed in on that issue. And there's another one going across Saginaw. It's also going to be by Consumers Energy is putting a pipeline up there in Saginaw area. And so they're coming in here. And again, I don't know what the state policy is on this issue. Right now, there does not seem to be one that I can recognize as being one that's pushing back. So we're trying what we can down here, and I'll keep the board informed.
Well, I do appreciate the effort, and a lot of this stuff, we don't learn about it till it's too late. That's part of the problem. So,
Yeah,
but I do appreciate it.
The Sierra Club is the one that brought it to our attention on the odorization variance. This board, we didn't even know until they brought it to our attention. And now that what they're saying is that if they're granted the variance from the odorization, there will actually be more safety requirements and will be better than the odorization. And I'm like Attorney Winters, I'm not an expert in the area, but according to Evan Pratt, they will request that they quarterly walk inspections of the route by qualified workers with the gas detection equipment, more frequent aerial inspections, inline remote sensing, motor monitoring, and electronic controls, along with 24/7 control center, and an alternative power source to ensure that it's functioning of the sensors and controls in the event of a power outage, and 24/7 on-call operation staff that's physically located within 20 to 30 minutes of the control valves. So, the Sierra Club thinks, and tell me if I'm saying this wrong, my understanding is that they think this is actually better than just the odorization.
You're right, you're correct, and I know right now that there may be additional ones, requirements by the PHMSA. So this is not going to be one that I can give you a definitive answer tonight on all the different safety enhancements. But I do know right now that, that they know how seriously we're taking this issue in regards to odorization, and we're not going to ever agree to anything that's going to compromise the public safety.
Right, public safety, but we're also paying for this pipeline.
Not according to the meeting that we attended. So we requested that in writing because that's not what we read in the newspaper. That's not what we heard. But at the meeting that we went to, the board members attended and the representatives of Spectrum, DTE were there. And they said, no, it's a separate utility. It's not the same utility as our customers. But I don't have it in writing, so until I get it in writing, I won't believe them, Ms. Kaiser. But
Thank you. I appreciate it.
all right.
But that's where your contact for the Attorney General's office could clarify that issue too, because the person you gave me the card to, he's assigned to the PSC, the gentleman you gave me his card for.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one that's supposed to be representing the taxpayers and ratepayers at the Public Service Commission. So I have his card still. And I'll make contact with him as well because I want more clarification, because it's my understanding that it's not going to be a charge to be passed on. But I, like the supervisor, I'd like to see that in writing.
Well, my husband goes to the Michigan Public Service Commission meetings, so he can ask also. And then they're supposed to start the court cases, I think, in April for the Nexus Pipeline business. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The work session then is going to be adjourned until the meeting begins at 7 o'clock.